Hey guys, it's me. I'm back with another video. I thought it would be fun to talk about some of my worst Walmart customers and kind of, I guess, what's the new lingo? I feel old. Spill the tea. Oh god, I'm so old. I'm so not with it. Anyways, let's just go ahead and jump in and I'll talk about the craziest customers that I had working at Walmart. I guess the one that definitely takes a cake is, I call her the abortion lady. Now, I had been working at Walmart for maybe 3 or 4 days at that point, or I guess I should say I was out on the floor for about 3 or 4 days, and they had left me on the register by myself, and it was late at night. So this lady comes through, she has groceries, and she has a bag of pistachios, and then she has a combat roach killer. And she puts the pistachios on top of the roach killer and they're on the conveyor belt and I'm bagging them, and I'm super tired because when I first started I wasn't getting off work until almost 2 o'clock in the morning. So it was, I was still trying to kind of get adjusted to that work schedule. And all of a sudden I see her, or I hear her, and she goes, "Are you fucking stupid? You're too stupid to even fucking work at Walmart. You know what? You're the reason that I believe in abortion. Your mom should have just fucking aborted you." And I said, "What?" And she's like, "Are you trying to fucking kill me? Are you trying to fucking kill me?" And I said, I what? And she goes, "You put my roach poison in the same bag as my pistachios. What the fuck is your problem?" And I was like, "I am so sorry." I was like, "I will personally go get you a new bag of pistachios." So I went ahead, turned off my light because at that point it was really not busy in the store. Run back, get her the pistachios, and she goes, "Oh, this is all you're gonna do? This is all you're gonna do is you're just gonna get me new pistachios?" And I was like, let me call my supervisor because I don't know what to do. I've only been here like 3 days. So my supervisor comes over and is talking to her, and she's just, you know, going off on my supervisor, and I'm standing there going like, crap, what do I do? Am I gonna get fired? Because you go through something called a CVL where you learn about like what things can be bagged together, how to use the cash register, and I went through that, and one of the things was you don't put chemicals with food. But I was just so tired I didn't even think about it. I had so much more that I was trying to remember from only being on the floor for a couple days. You know, I screwed up. Luckily I didn't get in trouble or anything, and I don't think I ever saw that woman again, but I think that definitely takes the cake as like one of my worst customers. There was another time when I was working late, and she wasn't my customer, she was my coworker's customer who was standing right in front of me. She was drunk. You could tell she was really, really drunk. And they said, "Well, I'm sorry, I can't sell you any more alcohol." And she goes, "Well, why not?" And they were like, "You don't have your ID." And she's like, "Clearly I'm drunk, so you should be able to sell me alcohol." And you know, she was just all super slurry and everything. And they were like, "No, I'm sorry, we can't." And she was like, "Well, I'm not moving." And so she stood there and she's screaming at this point. And so finally the supervisor comes over and they're like, "You know, what can we help you with?" She explains her situation. They say, "No, I'm sorry, you can't. We just can't sell it to you." And so she loses her freaking mind, and she just starts throwing all of these, because she had the glass bottles of Budweiser, and so she just started throwing them on the ground. And so like they're just cracking everywhere, and because they were all carbonated, you know, like beer is splattering everywhere, and they finally escorted her out of the store. So that one was a little bit crazy as well. This was later on when I was working at Walmart, and I was starting to train in customer service when registers weren't too busy, and I get a guy who comes up with a return, and I'm like, okay, you know, I know how to do this part. So he walks up and he pulls out this toilet seat, and I swear to you that thing had to have been like 100 years old. Yes, I'm exaggerating, but it was gross. He didn't even wipe it down. There was, you know, splatters and stuff like that, and he's like, "I need to return this." And I was like, oh, okay, give me 1 second. And so I go over and I talk to the other girl that's been there for years, and I was like, "He's trying to return our toilet seat and there's poo-poo on it and pee-pee." And she's like, "Are you kidding me?" And I was like, I don't know what to do. Like, do I tell him no? Do I just do it? Like, what do we do? And she was like, "Oh God." So she walks over and she's like, how can I help you?" And he's like, "Oh, you know, I need to return this toilet seat. The nuts are loose on it, and so it keeps swaying." And she was like, "Sir, how long ago did you buy this toilet seat?" He was like, "It doesn't fucking matter." She was like, "Okay." So she was like, "You know, it's like a $12 toilet seat, just return it." And I was like, okay. So I go and I'm like thinking to myself, I'm not touching it. So I go and I put on gloves, and he goes, "What are you doing?" And I said, I'm putting on gloves. Why? And I was like, I'm not comfortable touching it. And he was like, are you fucking kidding me? Are you like a germaphobe or something? And I said, no, I'm doing this for my protection, you know? And he got all offended. So all of a sudden, the toilet seat goes flying right over. I mean, thank God it didn't hit me. I was so thankful that it didn't hit me, because I just couldn't imagine like that dirty toilet seat, you know, hit me in the face or something. So it goes like right over my head. He actually made it in the right basket, believe it or not. But so he chucks it and he goes, you know what, fuck this shit, and he like leaves. So I mean, I was relieved that he left. I still had to touch it though, and so I went ahead and I put it in a bag, and I put like the biohazard sticker on it and stuff, and we disposed of it the correct way. But I was just kind of like, who returns a toilet seat that's all yucky? So for a while, we had a group of people that were coming in, and they were trying to confuse us cashiers by, I'll give you 20 and then, you know, you can give me 2 10s, and then I'm gonna give you a 10 back and you can give me a 5 and 3 4, you know, and they would start doing that, and eventually they're telling you to give them the wrong denominations. And a few of the girls fell for it, and the guys had walked out with like $200 to $300 because they just kept doing it. And so one of the guys comes through my line, and I'm like, you know, hey, hi, how can I help you? How's your day going? And I'm scanning his stuff, and he was like, oh yeah, can I give you a 20 for 2 10s? And I was like, yeah, no problem. You know, my register was already open, so I gave him the 20, or I paid for his stuff, I gave him the 20, gave him the 2 10s, and he's like, oh wait, don't close it. And I was like, okay. And he was like, actually, can I give you one of these 10s back for 2 5s? And I was like, okay. And then he started telling me, okay, how about this? And I was like, I'm closing my drawer now. And he's like, what? And I was like, I'm closing my drawer now. I'm not comfortable doing this transaction anymore. And he got all huffy and puffy, and he was like, well, I'm not done. And I closed my drawer, and I looked at him, and I'm like, well, I am. I'm not losing my job, because I was pretty sure at that point he was one of the guys. So after he left, I called AP over. They looked at him on the camera, and they were like, yeah, he was one of the scammers. And they checked my drawer, and I hadn't given him any money that I shouldn't have, so at least I didn't fall for it. But something in my gut told me, like, just close your drawer now. You know, I was like, either he's gonna try and take all the money and rob me, or he's trying to do that little like money scam thing. Another one was this coupon lady. Now listen, I like coupons. I've used coupons, I don't mind. We had a lot of extreme couponers coming in. I don't mind them. My issue with this specific girl was she had to have spent way too much time figuring this out. She figured out that barcodes on certain coupons matched other barcodes. And so she would go to self-checkout with coupons that were scanning but weren't for that item. And so she had one, and it was, I want to say it was like, you get $3 off of like laundry detergent or something, but it scanned the same as $1 off of aspirin, I want to say. And the aspirin she was buying was travel size, and it didn't say that it excluded travel size, so it worked on the system. And she was making $2 off of every aspirin that she got. And so by the time she totaled out, I owed her like $60. And I said, how? And she was like, oh, these coupons. And I said, oh, let me see them. Well, I already put them in the machine. I was like, let me go ahead and unlock them. So I went to unlock self-checkout, but she goes, no, you don't need to do that. Just give me my money. And I said, I can't. I need to see why the machine is wanting to give you $60 for buying 30 aspirin. And she got crazy with me, and I felt her behind me when I was going to unlock it, and I kind of stood back, and she said, I said that I want my money. And I said, okay, that's fine. And I went ahead and I closed it, and I didn't look at the receipt, and I just called security right away, and I was like, you need to come take care of this chick, because like, I don't know what she's doing. I don't think this is legit. So when they pulled out the coupons, they were actually for laundry detergent and not aspirin. And so that was one way, that was one customer that I was just always, she'd always come in. It wasn't like a one-time thing. It's just I caught her that one time. Another one was on Black Friday. I had a customer come in, and she didn't make it into the store right as like the Black Friday sale was starting. And so she had went around and just pulled off what she thought was the same item off of pallets that had shrink wrap on them. But what she didn't know is all of our Black Friday items had different barcodes. So every time that I would ring it up, it would come up at the wrong price, and she'd be like, that's not right. And I'm like, okay, you know, we're busy. Let me call. I already called a supervisor over, and was waiting for them. So I just kept ringing it up, and she'd be like, that's not right either. That's not right either. And finally I said, well, where are you getting these products? She's like, oh, I got them off of the pallets with the shrink wrap. And I was like, oh, that's why. Those are just going to go back on the shelves. what do you mean it's the same product? And I said, it is the same product, but because it has a different barcode, we can't give it to you. Yes, you can. You just change the price. Let me ask my supervisor. I don't mind changing the price for you, but I don't know if my supervisor is going to let me. Supervisor comes, says, no, you can't do that. Why did you open things that had shrink wrap on them? And she just said, well, because there was no more. And he goes, yeah, but if there's shrink wrap on them, you don't touch them. That's kind of like a common sense rule. I wasn't aware of that. I never went Black Friday shopping, and that was my first Black Friday working. And so she threw a huge hissy fit and ended up throwing a microwave, like a, not a microwave, like an easy bake oven. She ended up chucking an easy bake oven, and I was just kind of like, my goodness. And at that point I had realized a lot of people throw stuff in Walmart. I wouldn't say this guy is a worst customer. He was a regular customer, and he was I don't know if he was homeless or if like his guide would just leave him at Walmart, but he had Tourette syndrome, and so he would walk around the store saying things, and he would come up to me and he would just like, he'd be kind of creepy. Like, he was a sweet guy, and I knew that he had something going on with him mentally, so I didn't try to read too into it, but like, he had no teeth, and he would just come up to me and he'd be like licking his gums, and he'd be like, you're so pretty, and you know, I just want to kiss you. And he'd try to kiss me, and I'm like, no. Like, first of all, I'm married. Second of all, third of all, I'm just not, no. Like, I can't even talk. It just, yeah. And so, you know, he was definitely one of the customers where you would have to kind of keep your guard up, if that makes sense. Because he would just come up behind you and kind of touch you and stuff. I think at this point he has been blacklisted, so he's no longer allowed to come in Walmart, because I think he did that to a couple of people and they filed a complaint. I tried to be nice just because I'm like, either you're homeless or your guide person that watches you is just dropping you off. Either way, you're kind of in a crappy situation. I'm not trying to get you into more trouble. Another one we had was a couple that came in and they were both on drugs, and you could tell right off the bat that they were tweaking. They had to have been on some sort of really good meth, and I don't know if like them thinking they were being funny would let me let it slide or what, but they were like looking at me, and then they would pass an item across the self-check and say beep, beep, and I said, you're not scanning items. They're like, yes we are, beep. And I was like, but you're not. Like, I'll show you how. So I walked over and I like showed them. I was like, see, you have to wait for the beep. They're like, yeah, we heard the beep, beep. And I was like, okay, these people are on a good one. So I called AP and I was like, these people are like making beeping noises but not scanning. And they're like, oh, we've been watching them for a while. They have a bunch of stuff in their shirt. I was like, okay, cool. So they already had them taken care of, but I was like, you guys are strange. We had another lady who was smoking crack in the clothes department. And I guess I never saw her, but a couple customers came up to me and complained when I was on self-check, and I was the only, like, none of the registers in the store had phones next to them except for self-checkout. And so they came up and they're like, there's a woman and she has a crack pipe and she's smoking in the women's department. And I was kind of like, okay. And I called AP and I was like, apparently there's a woman smoking crack in the clothing department. And they were like, oh, we don't see anybody. And then like 2 other people told me, and so I called AP and I'm like, look, 2 other people just told me that there's somebody smoking crack, so I think there's somebody smoking crack. So she was definitely a weirdo. There was another time where it was late at night again, and I was on a register and I didn't even know anything was happening. I think I may have come back from my break or something like that. It was like maybe 12:30 at night, and all of a sudden I hear screaming behind me, and I'm like, oh shit, what's happening? So I turn around and there was an officer and he's chasing this woman, and she like, her purse falls and you just see like needles come out of her purse. And she was so, if I saw her and she wasn't acting that way, I never would have thought she was on drugs. But all of her little meth bags were coming out, and she had a bunch of needles that were falling out, and I was like, oh my god. So the officer, you know, like picked it up, and then I immediately jumped into action, like kept customers away, because he was like, you need to get these customers away. And it's like, dude, I'm a cashier, like I have no authority, but okay. So I stood there and I was like, you know, stand back. So that was a fun one. There was a lady, and she would bring her dogs in all the time, and they were these mean little fuckers. Like you would be trying to just do anything, walk around to scan her cat food or her dog food or something, and they'd be trying to nip at you. I'm like, these little bastards are mean. And she'd always be like, they're my support animal. You can't ask me any questions. They're my support animal. And I'm thinking, no, they're not, but whatever. I don't really care. Just get out of my line. So one day she comes walking up to me all huffy puffy, and she was like, there is a man in here and he has a snake, a big snake. And I was like, oh, okay. And she's like, I mean a big snake, it's gonna eat my dogs. And I was like, I'll figure it out for you. And all of a sudden I see the guy walk, and he has this big ass python on his arms. I mean, he had to have been at least 6 or 7 feet, and he was pretty fat around. So I mean, I guess if he really wanted to, he probably could eat one of her little dogs. And I told him, I was like, what's going on? And he was like, oh, you know, this is Herbert, and he's my emotional support animal. And I was like, oh, well, that's cool, because you legally can't ask anything if they say that, you know. And so I told the lady, I was like, oh, that's his emotional support animal. She was like, I'm not okay with this. No, you get him out of here. And I was like, I can't, ma'am. Why? And I was like, well, you of all people would know that if it's his emotional support animal, we can't do anything about it. Oh, was she pissed. She stormed out of there, left all of her food on the checkout conveyor belt thing. Another guy, I was covering sporting goods for just the morning, and I never really worked departments. I was more at the front end, just, you know, doing the cashiering and working in customer service and all of that kind of stuff. So I was like, please don't let anybody ask me questions I don't know, because if they ask me anything about fishing, I am confused. I don't know. I got guns down pretty well. I can do guns and ammo, like that I'm cool with, but like any other things around there, I have no freaking clue. So I'm standing behind the ammo counter, and this older guy comes up and he's like, let me talk to a manager. And I was like, okay, hold on, let me call her. Oh, no, don't call her. I was like, okay, what can I help you with? He's like, I'm not talking to no woman, not about this. And I said, okay, you know, I don't know what to do. And he was like, well, you better call me a man over. And I was like, okay, you know. And so I called one of my coworkers over, and I was like, he won't talk to a woman, he wants to talk to a man. And he was like, okay. So he comes over, and then he's like, you know, I'm trying to look for some hollow point 22. And I went to grab it, and he was like, was I talking to you? I was like, no. And so the guy that I had called over was like, what is it? And I was like, it's that one over there. And the funniest part of that story is, not once did he talk to me, but every single time that he asked the guy a question, the guy would ask me, and then I would answer it. And I don't know why he didn't just start talking to me directly, but I thought that was kind of a funny situation. I'm like, people are stuck in their ways, what do you do? But I had to giggle. Another worst customer that I had was actually 2 employees that I had worked with, and they, at that time we were ad matching, and they, I guess, just didn't care about their job. And so they would come in, and they were scamming Wal-Mart, and they had another girl that they were in cahoots with. So pretty much all 3 of them would come in at different times, whoever's working that shift, and then they would come in, they would say what the ad price was, like for price matching, and then whoever was on the register would bring them up for that price. And so they were changing all the prices. They were having like 24 packs of soda, and they were like, oh no, it's 60 cents. And so they would have like a grip of groceries and all these other things, and they'd be like, oh no, you know, they're ad matched. And I was always like, you guys are pulling some shady stuff. But I never said anything. I'm not a snitch. It's not my business, you know. So they come through my line, and she was like, oh, you know, this is this price and this is that price. And I'm standing there going like, I can't do that. And she was like, well, it's an ad price. That's what it says. It's an ad match. And I'm standing there, and AP is standing behind them. And I'm looking at AP, and she's looking at me, and I'm thinking, fuck me, they're gonna think that I'm helping them. But I wasn't, and she looked at me and she winked, and I'm like, oh, okay, cool, so you know that I'm not in it. And so I started ringing it up. I'm like, oh, 60 cents? Yep, that meat is 30 cents a pound. Sure is. Yep, you are correct. All right, cool. I rung them up, and then AP ended up getting them in trouble the next time they came in and pulled out. They had the cops ready and everything. So that one was definitely an interesting situation, and some of my worst customers. There was also another customer, and he was not my customer. I wasn't even at work that night. I ended up switching schedules with another girl because she wanted to go out somewhere that Friday or something, like, I don't remember. I worked that Friday, and so she was working like a random day because I have no life. I don't go out on Fridays. So I was working, I switched, I was supposed to be there that night, but luckily I wasn't. And this kid comes in and he's like bleeding all over the place. And everybody's like, whoa, what's happening? And he was like, I've been stabbed. And they were like, what the heck? So apparently he like got into it with some rival gang outside or something, and they had stabbed him. So he comes in bleeding everywhere, and they're like, you need to sit down, you need to sit down. And they're calling 911, and he's like, no, they're gonna come after me. And so he's like walking around the store, just leaking blood all over the store. And I guess after the paramedics finally came and took him away, he literally probably leaked down all the aisles, and we had to get out that stuff to kill the germs and everything for like the biohazard stuff. We had to get that out, and they had to clean all of the aisles that he was on and stuff, and that, I guess everybody had to work overtime that night. So I'm kind of glad I wasn't there for that one. And then the very last customer I ever had that I can think of is probably like the scariest one. So I was on self-checkout, and if you don't know anything about self-checkout, you have registers on two sides, and then you have your main register, and on that register you can check people out if you need to, but you're not. At our store we weren't really allowed to. There was never really even any money in the register, but that's where you had kind of like your little command center, if that makes sense. So like you can control all of the registers from your one screen. So I'm standing there and I'm doing my job, and this guy comes up and he's like, check me out. And I was like, I'm sorry, I can't. And he was like, well, I need to return this. And I was like, I'm sorry, if you need to do a return, you need to go over to the returns line. No, you can do a return here, one of your employees said. And I said, I don't know, I'm not supposed to. And he was like, I want to talk to your supervisor. And I said, okay, cool. So I called my supervisor, and at this point, like, none of their Palm Pilots were working ever, and there was no light that I could turn on to flick for them to know that I needed help. And so I was like, listen, I don't know how long it's going to take for a supervisor to come here, so you have better luck just going to customer service and doing your return there. I don't want to, I want you to do it here, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, I'm sorry, I can't. And so I walked away to go help a customer who was waiting for me because I was getting into it. And he goes into the returns line. He returns his item, and I see him coming back, and I realize he's sweating. And he has like veins popping out of his neck. And I was like, oh, he's pissed. And he comes up to me, and he like has his finger in my face, and he's like, I fucking, and I mean, he just went off on me. And I was like backing up, and he had backed me up against the first register closest to my register, and he was like in my face, and he was like, you didn't know what you were doing, and you could have done a return, and the lady at customer service told me you could have done a return, and I swear to God, I'm gonna blow this place up. And I was just standing there, I was shaking, I was so scared, because I mean, like, I had no way to get away. If he wanted to, he could have hit me and hit me hard. I was like, holy crap. So I'm standing there, and finally some guy kind of steps in, and he's like, hey bro, you need to leave her alone. And I was just kind of like, hey hero. So that was terrifying. I think that was literally like one of the scariest moments that I had ever been in. Not even just at Wal-Mart. I mean, I had bad dreams for probably the next like week or two of just him cornering me and like doing different things. Like each dream was different. Like one time he pulls out a gun, another time he hits me, you know? And like it really kind of messed with my head, and I was like, oh shit, people are crazy. So that was definitely, I want to say, like my number one worst Walmart customer ever. And then I kind of have a bonus one for you, only because I want to know if